That's why I do like a triple John, are you ready thing.
I'm recording now.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Well, now we can do the thing we were about to do.
All right. So, John, are you ready?
I am now.
Okay, Manny, are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm just going to say that Drevin called it. Hopefully he's wrong.
All right. With that, we're going to jump in with Welcome to Azeroth Roundtable, episode 339. Watch out, spoilers for the war campaign coming up. I warned you right at the beginning. From this point on, if you don't want to be spoiled, stop. I'm Ben Bumhofer, and it is Friday night, and I am excited to talk to two great friends here. First off with me, as always, is John Jagger. How's it going, John?
Hello, Ben! It is Friday night here in Azeroth, and you all are nothing!
Well, now I feel low and sad and betrayed by you, John.
Do you?
Not exactly, but we'll talk about that. The other friend, the other person who I said, hey, you know who'd be a good person to talk to about this whole war campaign thing this week is the one, the only, the awesome Manny. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back. Round table is everything. Thank you.
Aw, that's like a really nice thing to say, and it's so not true, but we appreciate it, especially if you think that.
Oh yeah, for the round table.
Yeah, that's right. That, you know what? That is a faction I can get behind. Definitely. Definitely. So, okay, here's the thing. In case you haven't been paying attention to World of Warcraft whatever, I don't know.
Warcraft in a hole. It's really
The latest developments.
Honestly,
It actually
where
is.
else is the expansion gonna go? You know, we've gone to other continents, we've gone to other planets, we've gone under the ocean, we've gone up in the air. Honestly, it's time for Warcraft to just be in a hole.
Yeah, it's a really big hole.
I thought that was what Deep Home was.
That's a different kind of hole. That's a different plane of existence.
Yeah, this time it's just a regular hole. It's not a fancy
Yeah, it's like,
hole.
have you ever seen The Life of Brian? You know the sage who's just like standing in a hole, and then Brian jumps down and like jumps on his foot. It's like that.
No, I see.
Gosh, more people need to see that movie.
I haven't
Anyways.
seen that movie. I don't know what you're talking
really?
about. Yeah.
Could have sworn you did. Okay. Anyways, so the war campaign finished this week, and a lot of people have feelings about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we really get any further into those feelings, I just want to say that a lot of effort has been done by Blizzard, and they did a fantastic job telling a story. Whether it's through questing, through cinematics, through everything that they put out. And for that, I think that we really need to commend them because they did a great job of that. But now...
That was it. That was the whole carrot. That was the whole carrot before the stick.
Well, the big thing is that like a story can be done incredibly well, and it could even be a good story. It's just you might not like it anyway, and this is kind of how I'm falling at the end of this. So,
How about
Manny,
how about this? How about
Okay.
we walk through the events of the end of the war campaign
Okay.
as we experience them and as we feel about them, and we will look at the good and we will look at the bad.
That's a good way of
And
doing it.
we'll move through it because hey, first off, let's start with the most positive. Last week I made several predictions. All of those predictions were wrong. A lot of them happily I was wrong about them. For anybody that's like, oh, look at John. Hey, it's literally in my Twitter bio that I've been wrong a lot and I will continue to be so. But there was no time gating on this. It was just,
Yeah.
it's patch day, get in there and experience the end. Now, a pessimist, which I am not, might tell you
What?
that the time gating was all the time between the end of the last section of the war campaign and this, and that was the time gating because there was really nothing but cutscenes after that. But I'm not a pessimistic person, so I won't say that, and I'll just say, hey, there was no time gating on it. Isn't that awesome?
Okay, so I get that there was no time gating. I don't know where in the world they would have put the time gating, considering the content that we got in 8.2.5.
Well, you
But
watch
you're
the
right, technically.
cinematic, and then you have a trivial little quest to do around Orgrimmar or wherever other people do quests.
Well, no, there's a quest or two before that.
Yeah, and you just put a week between each one of those quests. Come back come back next week for another fun quest. You want to go tear down some signs? That'll be another week delay.
So, okay,
Every
were
single
you
one of
both
those people were
loyalists?
mad.
They were
Yes.
really bad. Oh
So
yeah,
you're Sylvanas followers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we should probably. So where did you land on everything?
I did both.
Okay.
I had
So-
two characters that were up to date, so first day I was running through both of those campaigns.
Okay. Well, then let me ask you this: which one did you do first? Because that is where your heart is.
Was it? Because
No, if that's the one you chose to play first, it has to be, right?
I have my main and I have my headcanon for my main, and that's not necessarily how I fall. But if we're gonna fall into your scheme here, the first thing that I did was log into the shaman, who is a Saurfang sympathizer, rebel,
Okay.
whatever you call it.
And would you say the shaman is your main then?
It is the current character that I'm playing in raids. But is it a character that I'm playing the most? No, unfortunately not right now.
You're making this hard.
This
Okay.
is like
Yes,
the most
I am.
politician answers I've ever heard. It's really good.
I was actually on both sides of the campaign with one character, and am loyalist and a loyalist to the other side. But no.
I do not recall the events in question.
Oh, and he took the tie off too. That would have been perfect. But
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh
Okay,
man, we
so-
missed the opportunity.
So okay, because John and I are loyalists, the only other character that I have that's at 120, but I haven't kept up fully with the war campaign is Alliance side. So obviously, we don't exactly know everything that does happen. So on the support Sarfang side, oh, and also a question on that. Did you go with Sarfang from the very beginning, or was it at one of the times where we had an option to like break off and do something different?
It was Sorfang from the beginning. It was I'm not following Sylvanas because she burnt that tree, and that's way too far.
Okay, so you log in. What did you do?
So as a Sorfang player, you'll log in, you'll get a mission that is down at the dock saying like we need to rally, we're ready to make our move, and that leads you into the cinematic, the first cinematic that you'll see.
Okay, that's the meeting between the Horde and the Alliance.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the one with the in-game animation that they've done.
Okay, so John, correct me if I'm wrong. If you're a Horde, you log in, and then you go talk to Nathanos, and he's all like, "Hey, this other Dark Ranger has something to tell you."
Yeah.
And then you're like, "Okay." You
Well,
turn
you-
about 40 degrees, and then you click on them instead.
No, you go meet Sylvanas, but then there's a she reports to doesn't she? I didn't think I got the cutscene on the boat. I thought I got it in Orgrimmar.
No, you go
Well,
back to
no,
Org,
no.
and she's like, and
Yeah.
she tells you what the details of the meeting were.
Yeah, no, you don't go on the boat if you're a Sylvanas loyalist. You just go right into the throne room, and everyone's there already. And then they just like basically Nathanos is like, "Tell her what you told me,"
Yeah. And then
and then you see that same cutscene.
see the same cutscene.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that cutscene. It was good. It looked
It's
nice.
pretty cool.
It's actually my favorite of the two.
Interesting.
It started to make me not exactly doubt Sylvanas, but it made me think, man, if they're really going towards what it implies that they're doing, which is basically no Horde, no Alliance, like everybody's together faction, I'm like, that's what I wanted for the past couple expansions. So I might have gone in the wrong camp, but nope, Sylvanas through and through. That's what we're doing because that's who I'm supporting, and she's awesome, and I love her. She's the best leader the Horde has had. This is going to be great.
Hold on, we don't tell people that now, Ben. Now we pretend like we didn't. We feel betrayed, and
No. I'm talking about back in time.
Oh, okay.
where I
Oh, this was you then.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's how I felt at the time too.
Yeah.
So
Again, it's like, oh, no horde or no alliance working together like for good. That sounds awesome, but no, Sylvanas
yeah.
stuck to my guns.
But
I
yeah.
didn't get it that they were going that far. I felt that that the new alignment was that they were going to be on friendly terms, but they were still going to be two distinct factions.
Well, on friendly terms is better than we're gonna let you survive. That they've had every other time we've kind of worked together and stuff. So I can just walk right into what do you call it? Walk right into Stormwind. By the way, my Discord's going absolutely freaking weird. So
I just changed us
I
to
know.
Central because it was going weird. So
I was just
hopefully
about to
that
say we might
helps.
want to switch. So cool. Thanks for doing that.
Yes.
Podcast people, forget I said anything.
Yeah, you didn't hear any of this.
Okay, so then after that first cutscene, what happens to the Sarfang friendly people?
So you're there at the camp, right? All the figures are there. You can talk to them, get all of the little information how they're actually feeling. That's when you have Etrig, who's like, "I've got to go back, make sure that the citizens that are in the city are okay," and he goes off.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he does. um, as well as other people. Then you go to the staging ground, which is in Razor Hill.
Where
In
Brewfest
Razor-
is currently happening.
Yeah, they phased it so Brewfest gets temporarily suspended because people are like, you know what? Just chug down that last beer, grab a sword. We're gonna fight for the horde.
And this army just comes stomping through Brewfest as people are ram racing around. It's like, oh.
Yeah. And that's the first time you actually see the amassed alliance forces that are actually supporting the Sorafang rebels. But there's a meeting where you have the three leaders of both factions. So on the Horde, you've got Thrall and Sorafang, and I cannot remember the third. Oh, Zekan, of course, sitting
Yeah.
there. And then you've got Anduin, you've got and his retinue there. And while you can talk to each of them, in walk the two other Windrunner sisters, and
Ooh,
they say
they were there?
they were there. This is a really cool thing that the loyalists don't get to see. They have a little event where they come in. They're like, "Listen, I know that Sylvanas is bad news, but right now she's got the best army of actually fighting N'Zoth. Maybe we want to just let her have this for now." So there's actually a thought process of maybe we don't want to deal with Sylvanas. Maybe she's a necessary evil. And Anduin is just like saying, like, no, like we can't fight a battle on two fronts. We have to deal with this, or we're never gonna know peace. We have to act now before she's too strong. So that's when they become committed. Sylvanas is caved in the canyon leading up to the gates of Orgrimmar. We have Gazlo and Overspark who have come together and made a new machine to get through the canyon, which is a reused model from Operation Mechagon. If you've been in there and you've seen the like BattleBots one, have you been through Operation Mechagon?
No.
Nope.
No. Okay. Well, the people who have gone through Operation Mechagon, the fifth boss is actually like this kind of BattleBots one. They've got one that's actually a kind of tank with a shovel flipper. So
Oh,
you
that's
get
great.
to you get to actually like control that, shovel out these big boulders with that, and then electrify mines and get through
Oh,
all
that
of
sounds
that.
like fun.
It's a cool little vehicle sequence. And when you
Cool.
get through that, then you're actually at the gates. And this is something that the loyalists have like a little crossover, like overlap, where they actually go out to see the army. Well, on the loyalist side, you're doing one thing. On the rebel side or the alliance side, you're acting in tandem with alliance players who are no longer hostile to you, whether you have PvP mode on or not. And you're
That's
trying to
cool.
diffuse these packages that have been left. And
Huh.
sometimes you'll see
Where-
them spawn.
How did those get there?
But sometimes you're actually going to see other horde players planting them and you'll have to run behind and defuse them. The other
That's
thing that you're
awesome.
doing is you're sending all the different forces off because you know what we didn't realize in the Siege of Orgrimmar that they decided to actually make mention of this time?
There's a second way into Orgrimmar.
There are 3 ways into Orgrimmar, and maybe we don't
No,
need to all
right.
walk through the front door.
Yeah.
But
So,
that's the front door. It's rude to go into the side or the back door.
yeah, that one with that impenetrable gate that's closed, maybe some of those side entrances might be a
Yeah.
better.
No, we want to go in the one that's got the biggest gate and it locks itself closed in multiple areas that you would have to breach, as opposed to the one that has a little bridge into an open archway.
Yeah. So you send the elves, which includes Sandris, who had a bigger part starting in like 8.2. We've seen her. She leads her retinue of night elves along with the blood elves and the high elves. They go and attack the side gate that you were talking about. The back entrance needs to be dealt with. And then we also have to worry about a counterattack on Thunderbluff. So the higher mountain Taurens, they take their eagles and they're like, we're going to cut off the skies so that nobody can escape and do a counterattack on Thunderbluff. Obviously, Bane is injured right now and has been completely sidelined, and I will get back to that. But you are talking to everybody. You're getting them all into their parts. It's going to be a multi-pronged attack so that Sylvanas can't concentrate her defenses. And then we march upon the gates, and that's when the second cutscene happens for the rebels. But for the loyalists, what happens for the loyalists? Because that's what you guys went through.
Wow, the rebels are busy.
Yeah, they got a lot to do. We don't really have that much to do.
Yeah.
We beat up Ettrig.
And how?
Well, no, hold on. Before we get to him, let's do the other random crap first because it's just it doesn't matter. So we go around town and we rip off signs that say, "Hey, Sylvanas sucks," essentially,
Yeah.
and there are signs that specifically say she's just another garage and stuff like that. So we rip them down, and the people admiring it, they're pissed, and then they start beating you up, and then you have to kill them because what else have we done as Horde members who are loyalists is kill other Horde members this entire expansion.
Yeah.
And then we need to go talk to a couple people to be like, hey, get out of here. And then that's when we show up, and so Gallywix isn't. Oh no, we have to talk to Gallywix. Sorry, I mix him and what's his nuts up a whole bunch.
Gazlo.
Gazlo, yeah. So Gallywix is all like, we've got to finish filing these forms, which basically they're just burning a lot of papers.
Throwing them into the biggest campfire.
Yeah. And then talk to one or two other people to make sure that they're ready for the attack or whatever. And then, as John said, we need to go apprehend Ettrig. And there's some dialogue options there. And
You get another choice.
yeah, at that point, you get the choice of, hey, let's leave together, or sorry, if you are loyal, then I'm gonna have to kill you or something. I don't know. That's totally paraphrasing. Who knows? And again, I was close, but I'm like, nope, we're seeing Sylvanas through all the way here. So then I beat up Ettrig badly.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna end up killing him. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
we're taking him down to 1 for sure. So that was exciting. Then you tie a rope around his hands and you drag him through Orgrimmar while people throw rotten fruit at him.
Yeah, and meanwhile, other people are talking about I don't know about Sylvanas. This is the thing. The entire time, at least for me, there is only one group of people who are like, yeah, Sylvanas is the right choice. Every other one is like, I don't know about this.
Well, I will say I was hoping to find some Easter egg, and I was curious to see who she had supporting her. So I actually took an effort, and I went through all of Orgrimmar. I heard a lot of dialogue, and there are some people that are like, hey, you know what? I think she's the one who's gonna lead us out of this. There's some where someone will express doubt, and someone's like, no, what are you talking about? She's
done this and this.
She's
and
done
this.
this is why she's great for us and all of that. So there's some positive stuff. There's definitely some stuff where, you know, it's like I don't know, and being apprehensive, but
And it's a whole bunch of different races too that like are saying some of this stuff. So
although, as
there's
far as
undead,
lore, like
orc.
major lore characters, you don't have many. Like,
No,
Blizzard, at first, so I was watching it and I was like, really? They're not even going to put that strong of a divide, like, down the Horde as far as who's supporting her and who isn't? Like, which that was also interesting. And I think that, to me, is the first, like, precursor to how this all turns out. Because they're like, they basically sit down and they're like, okay, who's supporting Sylvanas? Gallywix. And then the person who shouldn't even be a faction leader, like, there's no reason for Gallywix to be in charge of the goblins, except
Nope.
that they can't make your player goblin the faction leader. So they went with Gallywix, but it should be Gazlo, even though technically he's not from that group of goblins.
Yeah.
But I don't know why Gallywix is around. Every time I see him, I'm like, why are you here? Like, literally in the Goblin Quest, you try to kill Thrall. Like, how did this end up happening? But
So I think with Gazelle and Gallywix, I think that there is something going on there. But honestly, with these characters now, where we have had faulty leaders, Gazlo and rather Gallywix is kind of the last of his kind now.
yeah,
Everybody else is pretty street shooting.
yeah.
that's true.
But I mean, it really was. It was absolutely nobody. It was him, and then it was the faction leader. I don't know how to say her name. From
Giera.
Is that how you say it? Okay, so
No.
Giera from the. Okay, well, I believed Manny, so that's how I'm saying it now. From the Maghar that we brought forward. Like, that's it. That's it for major lore characters. Then, of course, in the
Yeah.
Thanos, and it's like, there you go. That's who your allies are. You know, it's the equivalent of Star Trek when it's like, well, we're sending all these lore characters over here, and we're
And
sending
Jimmy from engineering.
right, exactly. It was like, oh, okay. Well, I kind of know
Yeah.
how this is gonna go because, like, I'm with the expendable group.
Yeah. One thing that I will say though that I liked, and it's just this stupid little thing, is I had a buff that basically said, "Oh, I can fly because the Dark Lady said so."
What?
It was nice. Yeah,
No,
if you look
she
at
was
your
a troll
buffs,
in disguise, which is why that the loyalists can fly, but the rebels can't. I thought that was a nice little Easter egg.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
yeah, I looked at my buffs. I'm like, "Oh, Sylvanas is up there. What does this say?" And oh yeah, I can fly. Cool. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. I'm like, pretty.
I
nifty.
didn't pay attention to that. I mean, I noticed it. I noticed everybody waiting at the gate, and I was like, why are they waiting at the gate? And flew over the top of it. I didn't realize it was because I got special treatment. That's hysterical.
Yeah.
It's very necessary because like when you are the one mission that you guys didn't talk about is when the loyalists are planting those crates.
Yep.
They're in direct conflict with other players on the opposite side, and you need to be able to fly out of there because your disguise will break as soon as anybody gets close to you.
My disguise didn't break at all. Maybe I should be a rogue.
Yeah, my disguise didn't break at all because I'm used to sneaking around stuff. So that was easy. But I did like
Yeah,
that
that was a
the
cool class.
disguise is basically like you're wearing Horde colors.
Yeah. Basically, no, it's the war campaign like armor that you get. That's all it was.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool. In
Yeah,
fact, I
it's
had
great.
most of that on already, so it was just kind of like, I have a hood, yay!
See, I have like all the Dark Shore Warfront armor on, so I look like I'm repping full Sylvanas. So all of a sudden, it was like, foop, back to Horde colors. And I was like, this is a fitting disguise for what's going on right now for me. This is
Nice.
great. This makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So then, as Manny said, the loyalty we fly over the wall and then drop down and just be like, oh, cool. And I noticed like a whole ton of people just standing together in one spot. So I'm like, my guess was, oh, that must be where they start the cinematic. Because like, I'm not even kidding. There are like probably 30 people in one spot,
Yeah.
just like in this clump with names all together and stuff. I'm like, cool.
Yeah, that must
Then
be
yeah,
what
go around,
launches it.
plant some bombs. I'm like, this is pretty cool. And then I saw all the other people there. I'm like, I wonder if there's horde. Oh, look, there's an undead, and they're your orange to me. This is neat. And so there's some really cool storytelling stuff going on there. And then I fly back, and I'm like, okay, cool, turn it in. And then of course it's like, hey, go up to the ramparts and watch what happens. And then there's a cutscene.
Yeah, and then that cutscene crashes the game halfway through, and you only get to see half the cutscene.
Are you
Oh, did that
serious?
only happen to me? Okay.
Apparently.
Thank goodness for YouTube.
Yep, thank goodness I have a, like, I don't give a shit about spoilers, and I had already seen it that day attitude, because I was like,
Oh man.
all right, this is great. Let's watch the cutscene. I was like, it'll be different now because I'm not just watching it on my phone or something like that. And yeah, it got about to the, like, he and Sylvanas are just about to start attacking each other, and then it's just like, burn, you've been kicked out of World of Warcraft. And I was like,
It's like it's
okay.
such an epic fight that the shockwave of their weapons hitting just like destroyed the server.
Yep, it was gone. That was the end of that. So I was like,
Yeah.
well, I do want to see it again up on the big screen. So I went to YouTube and watched it. Was like, thank goodness that this is the world we live in, where the biggest and most important story beats are gonna come from YouTube. We did it, y'all. So that's
Yeah.
where I watched it, and then I went back into the game and moved on from there. But let's not gloss over the cutscene because I feel like that's
First of all,
that's what
it's
we're
pretty.
here for.
It's very pretty.
Sure.
Very, very pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cinematics team has been knocking it out of the park since so long ago. I can't even remember when it became like such an art. I want to say Mr. Pandaria was when I started being like, oh my goodness, what are they doing here? But this is a great cutscene, and it's not just the visuals; it's the audio too, because like the like there's parts of it that's become a meme that we're going to talk about later, but like just from the intro, like you get that Orgrimmar theme with just a little bit of twist into the Warcraft melody, and it's beautiful. And that's after I had seen this thing like 6 times, and I was like, wait a second, like this music, it's getting me going, it's getting me right into it.
It's
So
got the blood pumping.
it's got my blood pumping, yeah.
Yeah.
But just setting the scene, and I think the cinematic by itself is so great. So, despite all the criticisms that I'm going to level at this later, the cinematic by itself is telling such a great story and such a great twist on where this was going.
Right. And that's the thing that's been so difficult for me, not to jump into criticisms too early. I promise I'll skew it back into the positive, but like the cinematic is so freaking cool. Like the things that are in it are awesome. The visuals, the sound, like honestly the character beats. I mean,
Yeah.
as a huge fan of Sylvanas, watching her just decimate Sourfang, who has been like the Chuck Norris of the World of Warcraft universe, and she just friggin' wipes the floor with him. I'm sure that there are some people that don't actually like this and I'm describing a negative, but for me, I was like, oh my gosh, it's badass. This is incredible.
Well, I think it goes to show like the importance of her character in this and why it is such a challenge and everything. Like, yeah, she is amazing at what she does. That's kind of her whole point. That's kind of her whole thing. And then that's when like that one little like either she let go of her game or she just got angry or what. When that little bit happens, that's when you're like, wait, what?
It's really strange because the orcs and the Tauren have always been the brute strength, like having such strength. And if you remember back in Before the Storm, like the novel, the undead were shown as being very frail. Like they lost an arm, and that arm doesn't heal. They have to like replace it with like some other arm from a different cadaver, right? So the fact that Sylvanas was able to like take that blow and just parry it, and not even parry it, she completely stopped it the first attack without seeming to even break a sweat. She just smirked, and then she started like dissecting him, right? As much as they were saying like before the fight, it's like, oh, you can't win. Like this is like she wasn't just faster, she was just as strong as well as being more agile. And it was just before the big reveal of like additional stuff that she was hiding. that was surprising. That was shocking. Just like, wait a second, this is not the typical undead. That was her, like, putting on a clinic.
Right. This isn't I got shot in the back by a Shadowfang keep boss and died, Sylvanas. This is like a whole new level.
Yeah. So to just kind of continue on with the fight, Sylvanas is technically still the war chief because she won the fight.
She cheated. She broke the rules.
Yeah, but Thrall
Hey,
does
you
too,
know
and
what?
nobody cares.
That never has stopped anybody in the past. Nobody's
Mhm.
nobody's really up in arms about now. Thrall cheated when he
Garrosh
defeated
won.
Garrosh.
He cheated. Well, he didn't know he was cheating, but he won.
Really, the Montgarra as a battle is not really determining a lot of war chiefs these days. For a thing that's purely about determining war chief, it's really not an effective means because there's been a couple where they've retained their throne by defending, but for the most part, it's like, oh, I challenge you, and then they have a fight, and then someone wins, and then the person who wins is not war chief. Like the movement of position has almost universally, as of late, been because someone said, hey, it should be this person.
And to be fair, if Sylvanas wanted to continue fighting, she would have killed him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, she won that fight before she won that fight. You know.
Yeah,
like,
and I guess that's the part that I struggle with the most is she had him dead to rights. He's down on the ground, and she says like, I trusted you, they trusted you, and then she like starts going on about like, oh, Hope's gonna die with you, and that's when Surfang gets his second wind, starts striking back and be like, no, you failed to kill Hope, you failed to like pit us against each other, you failed, and he's slamming these heavy blows where he's gotten his second wind, and she's no longer able to just easily block it. She's like deflecting it, but he's hammering her with these blows. And then that's when the twin blades separate, and he gets that twirl, and she defends the first swing, but she didn't see the blade separate, and he gets that hit in, and she loses it. She just, all her scheming and all her planning is just like that one outburst, and she says the horde is nothing, and it echoes in the silence, and she knows she screwed up. That's when Flaggy Girl just goes like, wait, just say psych right now and maybe we'll let it go. But no, she doubles down.
Yeah, well, you see it in. I mean, this is how great the cinematic is. You see it in her eyes automatically, like, wait, what? Like, it's basically like someone just going, the fuck?
yeah, it was definitely that.
Yeah.
And it was from an undead. Like, the people who are supposed to be most loyal to her were
Right.
just like, wait,
Yeah.
what did
And
you just say?
up until this like exact second, she has always been fighting for the undead, fighting for her people, trying
Well,
to.
except for the bit in the book.
Yeah, but that's a bit in the book. You know, we know Christy Golden doesn't like Sylvanas. Anyways.
Wow, just throw it out like it's a fact.
Okay, I don't think that's a fact.
I think it is.
Don't. Here's the thing. That's a complicated statement because
No, I know.
I will say this. I think a lot of people and we've said this on the show many, many times, and I know this is not what you were saying, Ben, but a lot of people unfairly blame Christy Golden for the direction of the Warcraft story, which is not accurate. She's a writer. She has written dialogue and maybe even elements of scenes, but she is not the creative lead. She's not determining the direction. If you don't like the way a character is, the way their arc has gone, you're not really mad at her. If you don't like the thing they said, maybe that's a thing you don't like, but it's not aimed at her. That said, Ben,
Well,
I
just wanna
have
say that
never
I'm not
liked her
serious.
characterization in the books. And I
Mm-hmm.
really don't like her characterization in this game. So it's one of those things where you said it and I'm like, oh, come on. But also.
Yeah, but no, I mean, a lot of it is that, at least in the past, Sylvanas has been all for her people. She's defending her people. She's making sure that they get like a fair shot at life in a sense, you know. That's why the plague was continued to be made. That's you know, her original idea. I mean, Johnny pointed this out multiple times. Was Magneto's plan in X-Men 1. You know, if everybody's a mutant, no one's going to be you know, oppressive against mutants. If everybody's undead, hey, we're all the same. It's cool now. You know,
Yeah.
she's been fighting for her people. And see, here's the thing: is way back in Legion when Vol'jin was killed. I mean, no one could have cast Cure on him, anyways. Vol'jin was killed, and because I mean, if you think about it, he just got stabbed. Why did he die?
Okay, we need to set aside the why, because like
That's an entire rabbit hole. We're not going to go
we
down.
can't go down it.
But
We can't.
okay, I'm going to split
No,
the
no.
difference between the two.
Well,
of you,
hold
though.
on, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Let me just finish my thing. So, you know, when she was actually given the mantle and everything, and Taryn Gregory and his team did a fantastic job of making a cinematic that looked like she understood the weight of being war chief and just like how heavy it was and how it extended to her whole people and everything. So it's, you know, maybe again this has been the entire plot this whole time, but it was almost like a shift in her character going from what I saw at the beginning of Legion to everything now. So yeah, it was a twist that it came about and kind of caught me a little bit off guard. I'm just kind of like, oh, so she truly is totally evil, and there's nothing redeemable in there at all. Anyways,
Yeah.
okay, sorry, I'm done.
No. I think the big thing that I went through is that I think there's two different Sylvanuses being written. There is the Sylvanas that you are talking about, that was fighting for her people, that wanted to ensure the continuation of the Forsaken as a race and have them propagate. That was a big thing that she was talking about. She got the Valkyr, trying to get them to make new undead, and Garrosh was very upset about that. And then she was speaking with Helia and making that plan to then gain control of Elnir and then be able to create new Forsaken with that. So like that has been her driving force for quite a while, that she cares about her people, and maybe she's being truly morally gray in that she will hurt other people for it. In fact, there's been times where she's clashed against other leaders other than Garrosh to be like, yeah, I could raise your soldiers, they'd be great. And the other leaders are like, no, do not leave them in the ground where they belong. So there's that Sylvanas.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you're looking at BFA, somewhere along the line, they started writing a different Sylvanas. And it wasn't even the beginning of BFA, because I remember Three Sisters. I remember her giving the like two truths and a lie. And if you look at the Sylvanas that is trying to like kill everybody and doesn't care about the Horde, then they're all lies. If you look at the interior monologue that she had in Before the Storm, where she again looks at like the mantle of war chief, takes pride in it, realizes the struggle that it was for Vol'jin and for others to keep these desperate people working together, and then that's totally gone because she's like, oh, I don't see you as like anything but like toy soldiers in tin armor. Like there's a completely different thought process there in the character and how it was written, and they never explained how it switched from one to the other. Just that this is what you're dealing with now. She's mustache twirling, ha ha ha.
Yeah, no
And
kidding.
that has been my struggle with it too, because as people who aren't a fan of her character or don't like to hear from people who like her character will be very quick to point out, well, she's always been kind of an evil character, and like the fact that you were caught off guard by this is ridiculous. And they're all very proud of themselves and they pat themselves on the back and feel good about it. But the reality is we can only go off of what Blizzard gave us. And what Blizzard gave us was, in Legion, a character who was united with Varian, who was united with the Alliance, working with the Alliance, who sounded a retreat to save the Horde. At Vol'jin's request, honored his request and saved the Horde, willing to sacrifice the Alliance, and she did so reluctantly. It wasn't like, oh, sweet, I get to betray the Alliance, peace, I'm out of here. It was, she was ready to fight, she was ready to die up on that hill. Vol'jin said, don't let the Horde die this day, and she stood up and took off. You have a Sylvanas that then was shown in the throne room, like Ben said. Like, literally, they're taking Vol'jin out, and she hasn't moved an inch since she's been made war chief. Like, trying to deal with what this means and what this represents. You have a storyline about the Loa saying that it's Sylvanas who needs to lead the Horde, which they've kind of, and to me, I'm going to call it a retcon, because to me, it doesn't feel like that story naturally progressed anywhere. It feels like they included that as a bit of storytelling, and then somebody at some point said, I don't like this story, we have to come up with a way to explain it away. Okay, well, maybe Vol'jin was lied to. So they retconned it, is how I'm going to look at it, because I don't accept that as decent storytelling. Like, oh, Vol'jin was told a lie. You have her rallying the Horde. We're going to avenge him and all of that. And then we go into the Battle for Azeroth opening cinematic. The very first thing that Blizzard wants to say to mark what this expansion is. And it is Sylvanas rallying the Horde and the Horde uniting behind her. And for the first time since things started to get turbulent in Lich King, you have a unified Horde rallying behind its war chief in a big, big way. And it was the coolest, most epic, most amazing moment. And then it feels like we hit that damn tree and it changed. And it was just different from that point on. And so when I say that I think Sylvanas was mischaracterized, I'm not saying I pictured her as this great hero that they have turned into a villain. I don't even mind that she has become a villain. I think that that's an acceptable path for her to walk. I'm a big fan of Arthas. He was definitely a villain. I'm a big fan of Illidan. He kind of went the way of a villain, and now they've kind of brought him back and like, oh, he had his reasons and all of that. But there are interesting stories in there. Sylvanas is a frustrating point for me, because instead of it telling a story that I liked and that made sense, it was the first time watching it where instead of thinking about how the story progressed, I thought, did somebody new come into like a position of authority at Blizzard and just say, no, I want to change the direction this all went? Because it felt that artificial. Like, I stopped thinking about the narrative as this flowing thing, and I started thinking about the politics behind it. In the same way that someone would talk about wrestling, even. Like, when the wrestler you really like is, like, a baby face and everybody's cheering for him, and then they turn heel, and you're like, well, why did they turn heel? That doesn't make any sense. You immediately go, the writers behind the scenes are freaking awful. Like, you start to get mad at these unseen writers behind the scenes. It's the same thing with how I'm feeling about WoW now. It's not that I don't like the direction of the story. It's that now I'm thinking about this writer's room and what they've done, because the story they've told feels fake.
So what you're saying is they Joe Quesada'd Sylvanas' marriage to Mary Jane.
Yeah. Sylvanas no longer married to Mary Jane. Made a deal with the devil. Yeah, it's bad.
Okay. So
Sorry.
my push for this is that when we started after Mr. Pandaria going into Warlords, they started writing not just one expansion at a time, but expansions that led into the next expansion.
Yeah, definitely.
Sylvanas, I think, is a consequence of that, the negative side of that. They've done it well from Legion moving, from Warlords moving into Legion, but what Sylvanas is definitely that they have a destination in mind. They've bent characters and they've almost stretched disbelief to get us there. Sylvanas' progression doesn't seem natural because it hasn't been explained in a way that we've been able to see her descend into this character. And like I was saying, there's lots of flags, even at the beginning of this expansion, that paint a different character, and we never saw where it changed. So we still have 8.3. It's not the end of the expansion just yet, but leaving it with the war campaign, we were given such little information. We weren't given enough clues to actually put together this puzzle. And now it's just sort of being like, okay, time's up. What do you have?
Mhm.
Right.
So it feels like a forced narrative more than an actual progression.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because I mean everybody's comparing this to Garage 2.0, and at this point, yeah, I can kind of see that. The difference between this and the end of Pandaria is that we don't have a raid to go along with the story. But honestly, aside from that, you had the whole new character to villain storyline for Garage going over multiple expansions. You saw the changes in character. You saw his displeasure with how Thrall was running the Horde. You saw him, just turning more and more into, the pure Horde. It's only going to be the Tauren and the orcs. And you saw this amazing story come out of it that did cross all those expansions. And I don't know if they really wanted to have, that exact thing with Sylvanas or not, which again, it's another 2.0 thing where you take a horde leader and turn them bad. But like you said, Manny, they kind of rushed it. And I think that if they were able to hold off, like, through another expansion, in the very least, they could have at least, tempered her more into this as opposed to just one expansion, boom, right into the next expansion. And I mean, I don't know if it's because of the expansion cycles that we're locked into right now, where Blizzard wants to have one out every year and a half or so, or 2 years or whatever it is. And in order to tell this story or to get to the other big story beats of this expansion, they kind of did cut themselves short with this. I mean, going into it, I had this whole idea, this whole theory that yeah, all this battle, everything that was happening, I still had in my mind, based on previous expansions, based on previous writing and stuff, that Sylvanas, she's a master strategist. So maybe she's got this whole idea on how to get that stupid sword out of Silithus, because that's this gigantic plot point. I mean, it's so big you can stick a giant sword through Silithus in it. It's right there, and like, yeah, she wants Azerite. She wants all the Azerite in the world. That's what she's doing. That's a big thing of this expansion. And I just kept thinking that there was going to be that twist to show that this entire time is she's working towards something like that. And while the expansion's not over, based on her just basically saying, "Hey, the Horde's nothing. Screw you guys. Peace out." And I mean, she can now fly like a Death Eater. I'm okay. I guess that the chance of her, being this genius in everything is just kind of thrown out the window too. And granted, this is my idea of what was going on. And yeah, I don't work for Blizzard. I'm not a writer. Obviously, I like my idea more than I saw that, but that's not how that works. So we have the story that we were given.
Well, okay, the story that we're given, if 8.2 was the final chapter, is deeply unsatisfying for pretty much anybody on any side of the faction. There is no retribution for the people who are dead hard alliance that wanted some comeuppance. Sorfang died at the hands of the person that you wanted to kill even more, right? The battle hardened rebels didn't actually win. It was really just Sylvanas being like, "Whoops! Well, I guess I'm out of here," and just off like a fart in the wind, almost literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and for the loyalists, you are just abandoned. You thought that you were fighting for like the
And
strength of
there's
the horde.
no repercussions at all. At all.
There's
I went and talked to E-Trig. He's all like, "You did what you had to do. It's cool."
Yeah, he's really
Yeah.
really humble about it.
Good
He's,
shot, Trig. He's like, yeah, you know what? You thought you were doing the right thing, I guess.
It's cool.
I've been there, man. Yeah, it's rough. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Like, he doesn't even care. It's amazing.
But
Yeah.
I think a lot of the post cinematic events are quite good. I think that when you're going through the major cities and you are hearing about these like night elves that are not happy and want to join up with Tyrande and Malfurion and hunt her down, right? There's one archer's just like, man, if I was just a little bit closer, I could have gotten that shot in and ended that Banshee Queen. There are people who are like, Anduin's too soft. We need to like end the horde because this happens all the time. There are Kilterrans that are saying like, why
Mhm.
did we join up with these guys? Like we left them because of this kind of craziness. What are we doing still teamed up with the alliance? Like there is actual dissidence on both sides because like that's all the alliance. On the horde, there are faction leaders breaking up fights between Sylvanas loyalists and Sorfang memorialists, I guess. Um, there are there are like different peacekeeping battalions marching the streets. Like the Magcar orcs are marching, Legion and the Blood Elves are marching just to keep the peace. There are loyalists in chains. So like, there were some
Mhm.
people who didn't renounce Sylvanas, like who didn't openly renounce Sylvanas, that are locked up because of it. And there are so many different pockets of like the undead refugees that are just completely lost. Like the post cinematic stuff, they are selling this world so well. I
Mhm.
love it. It's beautiful to just walk through org and see these different events. Have you
Mhm.
seen the Thrall actually like bumping into
Hmm.
Giera?
I haven't yet. I was looking for it earlier and didn't find it.
Yeah, I haven't
It's like
seen the actual event live in the game, but I read the dialogue of what she's saying to the troops as she marches across the bridge, and you've got Thrall up there doing his thing.
yeah, I came across it naturally before I saw a write up. Somebody sent me over the write up that WoW had put up on it. But yeah, there's a lot of reason if you are into lore to just sit in your capital city and go around and just see what's on the mind of the people and where
Mhm.
people are at. Like this is a very living, breathing moment that they've created in World of Warcraft, and like
Yeah.
I'm really happy for the world design team or whichever team is put that together.
Yeah.
I it's one of those things where I hate how we got here. I really don't like it. I just strongly dislike so much of it. But it is an interesting place we've arrived at. I am intrigued about the future, which is good. I mean, that's a good thing to feel. Is like I'm curious where this goes. I mean, we're seeing it right now in the chat room. Kalia will come to take over the Forsaken. That's somebody Solamio in the chat room saying
Mhm.
that, throwing that out there. I don't want that. I hate Kalia. I don't like her. I don't want her leading that faction.
She's
But
not a horde. She's not an
right, she
undead
doesn't
technically.
belong on the Horde. She shouldn't be over here. I don't want her around. She's a fake undead who got brought in through the light. I don't want this at all. But I'm sure that there are other people who feel differently. And
Mhm.
this is cool because now we're talking about the same group of people on the same faction and a division within that of, well, I don't want them to be the faction leader. Well, I do. Well,
Mhm.
I don't. And all of a sudden, we're in a really interesting place that has me sitting on that main screen where I pick which character I'm going to log into, looking at the weird little faction icon they felt the need to put next to my character, going, well, what's that about?
Yeah. Well, and one of the biggest things that I've loved about this, when everybody, again, I'm bringing it up one more time, talks about, Garrosh 2.0. One of the big complaints that John and I had back then was we couldn't like say no. We couldn't, choose the rebel side, against Garrosh until, you kind of had a quest line through. And even during that point, we're like, what if you want to be a Garrosh supporter? This is something that's been absolutely fantastic in this expansion is that we finally got that choice. The reason I'm upset about the cinematic is because I chose Sylvanas to win. It I mainlined that whole story, that whole plot. It's what I wanted, and yeah, my faction lost. That's a bummer, but it doesn't mean that it was like a total bad thing to do. It's just negative feelings because of that. And the fact that you had multiple times to kind of go back and forth depending on, how you were feeling as the story progressed, I think it says a lot to Blizzard that they were able to give us some sort of player choice. And I freaking love that. Um, Again, I find it a little weird that E-Trig's just all like, it's cool. But I mean, for the most part, technically, as a loyalist, you kept your identity secret from the rest of the horde.
Yeah, because I
So,
mean, there's the public loyalists who are in chains, and then
mhm.
there's the private loyalists who got to go chat with Sylvanas after the cutscene.
Yeah,
Uh,
which we need to talk about that because the Sarfang people, you have no idea what happened.
yeah, well,
Uh,
I mean, assuming you didn't go on MMO Champion and watch it and all of that, but
True.
there has to be people out there that are like, wait a minute, what? You talked to Sylvanas after that
Hmm.
cutscene went down? Yeah, we did. We had a nice little meeting at her
We
home
went
in the
to, yeah.
Plaguelands, and we chatted with her, and it was honestly one of the most interesting scenes. And you know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on you again. Please stop trying to fool me. Fool me 3 times. Here I am, still buying it because there is a very interesting interaction right when you arrive that in text form is one thing. You have to hear the delivery behind it, where Nathanos and Sylvanas are talking to one another, and he's talking about what comes next. And there is a sound in their voice from both of them, and they're both, watch those cinematics. Part of what make them so great is the voice
Hmm.
performances. They are performed amazingly. And when they're talking about what's coming next, there is this sound of regret and inevitability about it. Like where they're standing right now, Sylvanas knew she was going there, and
Hmm.
Nathanos knew she was going there too. And they know what's coming next, and they know it's going to be bad, and they know that they have to just go ahead and move forward with it. And so that to me is very, very interesting. But again, it's another big secret. Like
Hmm.
that Blizzard is loving their secrets this expansion, which is fine. Except again, when somebody has a secret in a book or in a movie, you're waiting maybe 30, 45 minutes or an hour before the payoff to that comes.
Hmm.
In video games, especially in MMO, you're waiting potentially years for the payoff to that. And that feels very different to a person than just, like, ooh, this is intriguing. We're going to see where this goes really soon.
What deal did Sylvanas make with Ashara?
So yeah, they talk about the deal that she made with Ashar potentially still giving her something out of it, even though Surfang and his ill-conceived challenge ended the war early. And she talks about like that. Hey, yes, like the hungering darkness has been fed all these souls, countless souls, because of the war. And so that gives you part of the plan, like that the war wasn't actually a subterfuge to mask what she's doing, but was actually the means for her to like collect all these souls, which Bwonsamdi had said, like, oh, that one has a habit of like keeping what she kills. Like there has been like a little bit of allusion towards it.
Hmm.
And the entire thing about the war was that she didn't want to win it or necessarily lose it. She wanted a prolonged war with as much death as possible, and that was her entire scheme. That's when the entire pushback through the war campaign I had to rethink through, and it actually kind of made it worse for me
Hmm.
because when you think about it, like again, they keep saying that Sylvanas is this master strategist. They keep saying that she expected this, and when the time comes, be ready. But they never show. They never show it.
Yeah.
So I get that she wanted Bane to actually survive. She wanted to galvanize a force to fight against her because at that point she felt that she wasn't going to get enough death through the conventional means. So she was actually stirring a rebellion to cause more fighting and more death. And I get that. But she says it herself. Why am I why should I accept this fight, this mock Garra? And Saurfang's like, "Oh, you want me to suffer?" Well, listen, lady, if your entire thing is to like have people fight, and you've been through the entire thing with Garrosh, and he just sat in that bunker, and they just had to fight all the way through, don't walk out the front gate. Don't even answer the call. Let them fight their way through to you. Make sure you've got a nice little sunroof in that underground bunker so that you can like wisp away Death Eater away, right? And let the war happen because she gets one nick in the eye. He says one thing to upset her, and this is a character trait that they introduced back at the beginning of BFA when she burnt down the tree, but I've never seen before that. But she gets pissed off and she says exactly the wrong thing to completely isolate herself, to completely bring the war to a scratch. And that's what I mean that the rebels didn't actually win. Uh, Sylvanas just lost and then tossed it away, and then took her little red ball and left.
Right. I mean, unless, like, and this is where the whole, like, well, I don't know, they won't stop telling me what a smart character she is, yet, per Sourfang's own words, she keeps failing. Um, a lot of people have pointed out the whole just like, I'm a brilliant tactician. I'm so good at this. I'm great. I'm great. Look at how smart I am. Oh, she's smart. She's dangerous. And then she loses because she gets a little upset and just blurts out that she doesn't like the Horde. So there is an element where it's like, well, okay, if she has brought the Horde and Alliance together, she has created essentially now the most powerful fighting force on Azeroth.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is the plan? But
But
there's a lot of buts when it comes to Sylvanas, and it's it's bad. Like I don't think there's a way if it turns out that like nope, it was a legitimate oops and her whole plan was oh she wanted a bunch of death, then okay, the Mot Garra was stupid. If it was oh well she kind of intended it to go this way, she was secretly trying to unify the Horde and Alliance, well then that's a dumb plan because she sure killed a lot of people and this is a really shitty way to come about doing it. And also there's a lot of other weird flaws with her plan and things that she has then since said not around anybody, so why is she talking like that to mask what she's doing? So I don't think there's a situation where I'm going to find out where this goes and be totally happy with it. I think it's going to be messy no matter what, but there are certainly still possibilities for where the story goes.
Mm-hmm. Like this entire plot is her saving Azeroth and getting the sword. Oh no, that's probably not going to happen now. Dang it.
No, probably not.
but the thing is, if you are giving such limited information, if so much is hidden in shadows, cloak and dagger, the clues that you do put out, they have to be very tightly focused. They have to be enough that people can get the structure of what they're doing, even if they can't fill in all the pieces, even if they don't know exactly where everything fits. They need to know generally how it works so that when you say something, when you do this big reveal, right, it adds a new layer, but it doesn't contradict what's happened before. So again, if her if her idea is I want as much death as possible, and even if Saurfang has ended the war early, the upcoming battle against Nidalth is going to be enough for me to hit some sort of critical mass. She wasn't playing that game, right?
Yeah.
She clearly got angry and said the exact wrong thing. She could have said, Saurfang, you are nothing. Your rebellion's nothing. I hate you all. The people behind me, they are great. But no, she said the exact phrase that Saurfang needed to spell her undoing. And it like that doesn't seem like an angry blurb as much as a MacGuffin. That's
Right.
when I really was just like, and that moment is why that cutscene, as glorious as it was cinematically, fell for me.
And it's funny because you brought up Teldrassil, and I keep going back to, the idea that, yeah, Sylvanas got mad at that night elf, which I forget her name. I'm sorry, Miss Night Elf. But the thing is yeah, she did see that she couldn't defeat Hope in that instance, so she did what she thought she had to do to defeat it. And I'll tell you what, it totally demoralized the Night Elves to the point where they kind of went a little bit more feral than they used to. They're fighting in the forest. They're trying to kill everybody. Their Night Warriors came back, which for some reason I still don't have that as an option, even though I've done the quest line. But it's just a weird thing that, it's like, oh, she just got angry like a whiny little baby and blew up the tree or whatever. It's like, I think it was a lot more calculated than that. And, again, maybe this is just me grasping for straws for a character that I've seen, a lot of depth to in the past, and hoping that, again, even though, she turned villain, this might still be part of her actual plan. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I
I definitely hope for better for her than the extremely poor representation that comes from, well, she's a very smart character. Her Achilles heel is that if she gets mad, she'll do the one stupid thing she shouldn't do. Like, that's her kryptonite, is if Sylvanas gets mad. Like, she's cool, calm, collected, and figures everything out, but she's like the anti-Hulk. If you get her angry, she'll do the worst possible thing. She'll say the one thing that would ruin her plan. She'll burn down the one tree that'll turn her people against her. She'll, it just doesn't make any sense.
Man. She's Spock from the new Star Trek movies. Just don't talk about her mom.
Yeah, if you just make her angry. And I mean, honestly, the funny thing is that's the way it is in the book too, because the whole turning on her own people and killing Kalia and all of that, she gets mad. Like, is that what we're gonna say her character trait is? Is like, Sylvanas is a character that is this very, calm, collected, smart person, but if she's angry, she just messes it all up. Like, I hate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a very strange flaw to have and it's unfitting of somebody who is being such a strategist, a battlefield strategist, a master manipulator, to be unable to control their own emotions is very. I don't even want to say ironic, because ironic seems like understating it.
Yeah, it's just wrong, is what it is. Just, yeah, you can't have that level of intelligence and stuff and just lose it with one jab, It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with limited time. They have to tell, they have to try to tell a complete and compelling story in about 6 minutes. But at the same time, like, if you're gonna do that, you need to have the characterization make sense leading up to it, and it just doesn't. All expansion, we've had people talking about how brilliant she is, and then you literally made a cutscene around how she fails all the time. So you're already, you yourself as the writer, pointing out that all the times that people worry about her, they shouldn't be, because she's not succeeding really at anything. Like, and if you look at the story of the war campaign, the Horde is losing for most of it. Like, it's not like she was single-handedly really winning the war or anything. Like, Horde is losing for most of that. And then kind of just suddenly isn't at the end, and all of a sudden Anduin and Bane are really worried about their chances. Like, that's the part I didn't really get where that shift happened. And I know we're getting near the end of the episode, so that's a whole other aspect that we would have to dive into, which is, this is the expansion that's supposed to be about the war between the Horde and the Alliance. I don't really feel like that war happened, and if you try to trace the effect of that war, like, it also doesn't make a ton of sense, because when we had the whole Jaina fight and that whole storyline, that whole battle, the storyline was, oh, the Alliance is winning. And, like, when they told me that in-game, I was like, they are? And then, like, later there was another quest line that talked about how well the Alliance is doing and how on the ropes we were as the Horde. And I was like, we are? And then all of a sudden we get to the end here and they're like, Sylvanas' forces are too great. And I'm like, they are? Like, the only reason I know how that war went was because people kept telling me how it was going, and I was surprised 100% of the time.
I mean, we had 2 war fronts and the battle for Dazalor.
Yeah, and the war fronts were just okay, it's your week to win. Okay, it's your week to win.
Yeah, that's kind of true.
The the one thing that I take away from this is that Blizzard has done a number of very sympathetic and complex villains before. Uh, Turning Sylvanas into an unsympathetic villain is being a big failing. I think that they could have written her with like and shown more of her motives, even if they had shown like conflicting motives and not really what her end plan was. And it would have been a more satisfying way of going about it. But at this point, I think we're going to be waiting into 9.0, 9.1 before we get what is actually going to be the resolution of this story.
Well, what'll happen is in 9.0, Thrall and Sylvanas fight on the plains of Nagrand, and giant boulder hand's going to come out of the ground and grab her and then strike her with lightning, and then Thrall wins.
Yeah.
I'm going to substitute Thrall for Tyrande because if she doesn't get her comeuppance from a night elf, it's a crying shame.
I don't know how she can make a hand come out of the ground, but I mean that's part of how this works. At least that's what happened before.
That was the one thing about the burning of the tree that made me the saddest, was when I realized that it's going to be a night elf that kills Sylvanas, and I'm going to be so bummed about it because I hate night elves so much. I'll just be like, oh, it's going to be like Malfurion. Friggin' Clown Shoes Malfurion is going to be the one that gets her or somebody, and I was just like, shit. Like, but I don't know. Actually, she's made so many enemies. I'm sure there are people out there that are like, if it's not Greymane, we riot. If it's not Tyrande, we riot. If it's not Malfurion, we riot.
I want it to be Gen, if anybody, because he's had such hate for her for so long. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't want to see it happen. In fact, I want to see Gen get taken out by Sylvanas. I mean, I think that'd be perfect.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't want it to be a night elf either.
This doesn't feel good. It's because I don't like night elves. Sorry, night elves. I know there's a lot of you, and that was actually my first tune in WoW, so I don't know what to tell you. But I just don't like them. Their zone puts me to sleep. So we burned it down, and I feel better about it.
Draven asked Ben, why not both?
Could be.
It's like, okay, yeah.
We could Caesar this thing. They catch her in an alley, and they all just take turns stabbing her. I don't know.
Yeah,
You know, it's what the Alliance does on the weekends.
Symmetrical kind of like raids where like one side is like the night elves coming in and like being like you've got to gather more swords so we can stab her. The other side is the Gilneans coming in and being like, put on a top hat and stab her, and then you get it from both ways.
Yeah. Oh, I like the idea of just, okay, for this raid, you need to have a top hat on. Like, that's the equipment. You walk in, it's this whole quest line where it's put on the top hat. You finish that quest, and then you just go stab Sylvanas. That's how that works.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to be happy with any outcome here.
Like, seriously, I'm not going to be happy with any outcome where she dies, because I still like the character.
I mean, and that's the thing, is I've been such a longtime fan of the character that's what makes all of it hard, is to have her be kind of that anti-hero that you like. Because she was, folks. We all agree Arthas was the bad guy, and she was the foil for Arthas back in the Warcraft 3 days. She was the one who opposed him. That's an anti-hero. But you know, it's hard to see where she's wound up since those days.
Yeah. So
maybe she could be redeemed someday, you know.
I don't know. There were people that were like, maybe Arthas can be redeemed. There were people who thought maybe Garrosh could be redeemed. Honestly, I started liking Garrosh way more by the time he was on his way out. Like, all of a sudden they put a bunch of really stupid, ridiculous Band-Aids on him, and I was like, oh, maybe Garrosh is all right. So...
Yeah. So before we close up, we do still need to talk about the Rebel side of things. Like, what's the quest line that you get there? Because I haven't seen that. I only saw a screenshot of what happened.
So after the cinematic?
Yeah, the funeral.
The epilogue's pretty short. You will speak with the various leaders who are all committing to like hunting her down or making things stable. You don't get the long epilogue that explains like what the motivations were. That's completely for loyalists. You are basically just left picking up the pieces and saying that like, yeah, we're going to give Sorafang a hero's funeral. That's the end of it for loyalists and for the alliance. And then they say, okay, we plan to work together against the coming evil, and maybe we can like actually move past this and not start another war now that Sylvanas is out of the way. The Alliance people go through the portal, and the Horde stay in Orgrimmar.
I think one last thing before we go, even though I know we've gone way over on this episode, I would like to go around the horn, put on our tinfoil hats. Where's the story going?
John, you go first because you brought it up.
Okay, here's my tinfoil hat. There were a lot of the frustration around the story this go around has to do with Blizzard making statements and making promises that they have not backed up. Ultimately, they said this war was going to be Horde and Alliance focused. It wasn't. It wound up being another Horde v Horde while the Alliance watched and went, "We're a part of things too." They said that it was going to deal with a lot of like morally gray decisions on both sides. It wasn't. They gave us one central villain to focus on. They said that Sylvanas was not going to be another Garrosh. She totally was. There were a lot of bold statements made and broken, but as Manny pointed out, the expansion is not over. Maybe it is time for those statements to make a very late, probably too late, appearance. And I say that it is time for the Alliance to start sitting there and start talking and say, you know what, why are we all following Anduin? Because he was the son of the leader we respected? Like, a lot of us have been leaders of our factions for a lot longer and doing a better job than him. I think we end on an Alliance civil war.
I mean, with what happened with the Night Elves, how Anduin didn't really like go to support them, I can see that. With Gen being Gen, I can see that. Although he pretty much supports Anduin no matter what, except for Before the Storm.
Now that was about him coming around and realizing that Anduin was right. So he took longer to support Anduin, but he ended up supporting him.
But I don't know if he fully did at the end, at least with the undead. I don't know. I still think that there's enough hate in Gen's heart to like fuel 100,000 fires.
And I'm still looking at that, like I said, that faction icon next to my characters, and I'm like, what's up with that? So I think Alliance Civil War, there is a coup. Somebody takes over the Alliance. I don't know which side. And now there's still a Horde, there's still an Alliance, but it is now populated by all the races of Azeroth on each side. That's my tinfoil hat.
That'd be really
pass
cool.
it to someone else. Whoever wants it may take it.
So, I mean, at this point, if we don't fight N'Zoth, I will be very surprised. If we don't defeat or at least fight N'Zoth by the end of this expansion. Going forward, I think that we're finally going to have, some very big expansion dealing with the Void. I think that's the fact that Wrathion and by the way, John, did you do that quest?
No, because I haven't killed Shara.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the Wrathion stuff, I think it's really cool, and I think it's leading up to stuff, and I think it's gonna start, finding Void Lords. I don't know if N'Zoth being out is going to like start bringing things into Azeroth that we're fighting, or if we're going somewhere else, which I don't really see us leaving the planet again, but maybe there's like a void version of Azeroth or something. I don't know. But I really think that like the battle for Azeroth, the Horde and Alliance faction war is just going to be set to the side for this next expansion, because I think expansions are being done now with there's A teams and B teams, and I'm not saying one is better than the other. It's just
I will.
one
Whoever
team.
made Legion was the A team. Whoever
Okay.
made Lich King was the A team. Whoever made Pandaria
Pandaria.
was the A team.
Okay. Anyways,
Okay,
so basically, you know, one team is always working on the next expansion, and yeah, there is some cohesion between them, but it's not huge story beats for the most part.
so I'm gonna do my tinfoil hat. What I would really love to see is a breakdown of the Horde and Alliance being the central powers all the time. It has been the Horde and Alliance being unstoppable when they're together, and so the either need to be fighting each other every other expansion, or some malignant force needs to be invented that is so strong that they need to work together. This was about breaking the cycle. That's what Sylvana
Mhm.
said in her monologue at the very intro. If you watch the intro cinematic to BFA, she talks about the cycle of war and how they're stuck in it. And then Sorfang says, "We're breaking the cycle." That was a very important part. So now that that's aside, now that we have what looks like a lot of unrest on both sides, we could have splinter groups again, much like we had the Scarlet Crusade being humans that were so against the undead that they couldn't work with the Alliance and actually fought against the Alliance and were hostile. We could have things like Tarande's forces actually being like, no, we're not going to rejoin the Alliance. And it's being referred to as the Army of the Black Moon. I would love that to be a faction that
Pretty
is
cool.
hostile to everybody and like we are the true night elves, we're reclaiming our land, we don't care. The big thing that we did wrong was ever inviting any of you races into our home, and so now they're their own faction. We can have all these
Oh man, what if they lived in a
things
like a big burned out tree? That'd be awesome.
Except there's a sapling in the center.
bathed in eternal night.
Yeah.
It could be something. um we are looking at now going into 8.3, and yes, I do believe there is going to be an 8.3. I will say more about that later, but 8.3, we're looking at dealing with N'Zoth, and dealing with N'Zoth is not the end of the Void Menace or even the end of Old Gods. There are Old Gods out in the Great Dark Beyond. We know that Xalatath has gone out there to make her own way of things, and we know that the cosmos is filled with corrupted planets that old gods were scattershotted out to. So even if we deal with the last of the four that we had implanted into Azeroth, that's not the end of old gods. Those are just the old gods that we know. So I want to see N'Zoth dealt with, and then he does what he said he was going to do: open all eyes to the greater conflict that is actually raging, and that's where we go next, and that's the battle between the light and the void, and that cosmic level. And now it's no longer defending the the Azeroth against these internal threats. It's defending Azeroth against these external threats as the last Titan, and that's where we shift the fight to. So that's what my tinfoil hat is.
Seems
So that
pretty
place would
good.
be called the Shadowlands?
The Shadowland.
The Shadowlands represents one, but we have also seen the light being more malignant in the alternative universe. And maybe it could be, if you want something that is a struggle that is very alliance focused, what happens when Anduin and Velen now have to distrust the light, where there is stuff going on with the Lightborn Draenei, where there is another Naru that is being a tutorialistic dictator, and they have to be like, wait a second, this is not what we signed up for. These are good people. Are we being pushed so far? There might be an internal struggle of the Church of the Light, all these like different disciplines, including the Blood Elves and the Sunwalkers, having to realize that like where they draw power from is not purely good.
Right, it's just as fallible as the other sources of power and energy.
And then we can
And-
have some smug warlock be like, "Ha, suckers."
Told you so.
And of course, don't forget that whole thing is going to bring in the Lightborn undead too.
Yep. And
Yeah.
then that could be where Kalia and what she actually is comes from. And on the opposite side, Lillian Voss and the undead trying to be like, what side do we join? It can be a lot of internal conflict, and it can be a very alliance centric one because the alliance has historically been associated with the light, and I cannot see a better way of headlining it than with Velen and with Anduin.
Very true.
I like your expansion the best. Just throwing that out there.
I do want to point out this was a very interesting thing brought up in the chat, and I want to agree with it because I think this was a big key. The achievement we got for the end of this storyline was Veteran of the Fourth War, implying that the Fourth War has ended, and the Fourth War would be the entirety of World of Warcraft, because the Third War was what happened in Warcraft 3, and the Third War came to an end in Warcraft 3. So the Fourth War would be basically anything from vanilla WoW until now. And as Leowald points out, that means we are up to something completely new. Like, there is definitely, we are looking at least per what the game's telling us, we are looking at the end of that conflict, which is a strong indication of what Blizzard's intent is going forward.
Which goes along with breaking the cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now, instead of fighting at the beginning of the expansion and then teaming up to defeat a common enemy and then separating, we're going to be together from the beginning and then fighting the common enemy and maybe still together at the end.
Maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
there's still a little symbol next to my character's name, Ben, and if we're all going to be one faction, that wouldn't be there. So together but separate.
Actually, it would be there. The symbol could be that you could have a race that isn't normally part of that faction switch over to that faction. But
Yeah,
if
but
there
I'm
was
saying
no
if we
factions,
were
they
all
could just
one,
remove
if
those
we were
symbols altogether.
the Horde of Alliance or whatever they want to call all of us as one collective tree-hugging group, then there's no need to put a symbol because we would all be the same symbol. So I think there's still going to be some recognition of a division, even if technically we're all getting
Maybe
along.
it just shows historically how you started
Oh,
that character.
It could be. This was I'll know because of my race, because up to this point, that's the line of politics, except for pandas.
And being a Pandaren, it's good to know which side I'm on.
Watch, we've all gotten very conspiratorial about this symbol next to our characters, and that's
No.
the sole.
You have.
No, I think everybody should be. And if you're not logging in and looking at your character select screen and going, "Why'd they put that symbol there?" then you're not thinking about it enough.
It's so that you can.
all my symbols are nice and matching, and I get to look at that with pride every time I log in.
Okay, well,
It's so that when you log into Classic, you know
bonus.
instantly that, oh shoot, I'm in the wrong game because I have a symbol next to my name.
They could have gotten away with that with the color coding.
Yeah,
There's now that new color coding that is great.
But
Wait,
I will
maybe
say
we're gonna
that
have shamans with yellow now. Why would they put the color in?
All right, let's get conspiratorial about the colors.
Okay, hold on. So, as someone who has a Horde and an Alliance 120 Pandaren monk, that symbol's handy sometimes, especially since I named them very similar. So
It was just
That's
for
all it
you.
is.
They
It was for
looked
me,
at your account one time and they were like, "This is confusing. We need to."
wait a
clean
minute, he's got a
this up."
character named Xiao Baoshi and one named Xiao Lushi. What's going on here? How can he tell them apart?
Can't be done. There's no way to know.
Well, one of them's dressed kind of like a pirate, and the other looks like they work for the Horde. So you tell me. Okay. Anyways, Manny, thank you very much for joining us for this extra long episode of Azeroth Roundtable. I couldn't dare to cut it off at our normal time because we were having such a great discussion. So I appreciate you putting in some extra time to hang out with us, and it has been truly an honor to have you on.
Thank you. It's always great to be on this. If you want to hear me talk even longer about this, we just finished posting our last episode for Azeroth. And that one clocks in at over 2.5 hours of talking about this very subject. So that can be found over on For Azeroth or Faz Podcast on Twitter. And you can check that out. Or just simply Patreon/Faz, and all the episodes are posted there so that everybody can see those.
All right. Hey, John,
Hey,
question for you.
yeah.
If people want to find you, how can they find you?
Hey, a great place to find me would be to go on Twitter because I'll tell you where I'll be. I'm going to do that now, but Twitter is a good place to do it again. And that's at John_Jagger. You can also check me out talking about video games on Core, which is the video game podcast I do, part of the Frog Pants Network. You can find out more about that at heroesforyou.com and playing Dungeons and Dragons on There Will Be Dungeons, which is find out more about that at therewillbedungeons.com. Oddly enough, both those shows are going to record on Sunday. One right after the other. So,
That's
stop
pretty amazing.
stop by on Sunday and watch both shows back to back if you're really craving more. So, that'll be fun.
All right. And Manny, since you went into talking about Fast so much, I realized that I didn't ask where people can find you. So, where can people find you?
So other than the Faz links that I just pimped, you can find me on Twitter. That is Tru Villain Manny, True without the E. And of course, I am always doing the shows. You can find those shows generally over at tgistudios.com.
Very cool. If you're looking for me, I'm going to plug myself without being invited there because I changed the order how I usually do things. You can find me on Twitter. I am at Ben Bumhofer. I realize I laughed in the middle of that, so you don't even know what I said.
I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to plug myself because I changed the order it exactly means. Do we want to be a part of this? Is this something you need private time for?
No,
No.
John. I always want you to be around when I do this.
Okay.
So check me out on Twitter. I'm at Ben Bumhofer. I also do a show with Luda called Box Fort, where we geek out about a whole bunch of random things, whether it's movies, video games, comic books, whatever. So check that out. Box Fort. Well, you can find the podcast, boxfortshow.com. Also, if you like Dungeons and Dragons and you're like, hey, There Will Be Dungeons is a great show, but I need more in my life, you can check out Plus 5 to Hit. You know what episode? I believe it's 25 is a really good place to start if you're just joining, because that's basically where season 2 picks up. We have a lot of fun on that show.
Is that where you start?
No, I guested a few episodes before that.
Okay,
but
but
season 2
wait,
starts.
isn't that a new character though?
It is a new character. A lot of changes happened.
So did you recommend that people start when you start, as if the show did not have quality before you arrived?
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying
I'm just asking.
of,
I'm just asking
extra level of
questions.
polish.
Yeah, I'm just asking some questions.
So, John, as you, when you say, hey, a good place to start would be the beginning of season 2 on There Will Be Dungeons, I'm doing the exact same thing. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good starting point.
Because it it changes dynamics like ours did, because it jumped forward.
Yeah, it did jump forward. I actually recommend it. There's a couple characters who had to step away. There's someone who joins. It whatever.
What's the name of the new character that joins? Just as a preview.
Doesn't matter.
I'm curious though. I want to know who the new character is. What's their name?
The new character's name is Shizu.
Shizu?
Yeah, Shizu.
Like a zoo full of all girl animals?
No.
Like Jurassic Park.
I guess it kind of sounds like, yes. The new character's name is Jurassic Park. So you can check it out. Pretty cool. But I highly recommend all the other episodes because I actually really enjoyed the show before they asked me to join it. I had a lot of fun listening to it.
Well, and you guessed it on some of those, I understand.
Yes, I did. In
But
fact, I guessed it on There Will Be Dungeons as well.
But not as Shizu.
No, I was a different character at that point because I didn't know I was going to be asked to join when people had to step away.
What was that character's name?
That character's name was Fiven. Go ahead, make fun of it.
Fiven what?
Fiven Hanover was his name.
Okay. I like it. That's good.
And I do another show about Dungeons and Dragons called DN Discussions. That's with Ryan Reeder. We have a lot of fun on that one, talking about stuff. But other than that, this show, Azeroth Roundtable, where you can catch all those awkward endpoints every single episode we do on AzerothRoundtable.com, on iTunes, Spotify, pretty much every place you can find a podcast. And if you have any questions, comments, want to tell us what you thought about Sylvanas or the whole war campaign, you can always email us. Send those to AzerothRoundtable@gmail.com. Or, of course, you can tweet at us That's at AzerothRT. And if you do want to catch the show live every single week, check us out Friday nights on twitch.tv// AzerothRT. You can check out those times on Twitter. We usually post it out.
Hey, Ben.
Yes, John.
Did you hear about the lady who spilled McDonald's coffee on her?
Which one? The one that successfully won the lawsuit because the home office of McDonald's was talking about adding a warning to their cups?
Yeah, she sued.
It was on me. No, Discord froze. I didn't even know if you'd said anything.
Oh, I said she sued.
She sued. I got it.
Oh. Gotcha.
Successfully, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
Hey everybody, this show is made possible by all of you out there who come together and encourage us to keep up these antics. So a special thank you to all of our patrons who go to patreon.com/AzerothRT and make jokes that make Ben stare at me angrily possible.
I'm not actually staring at you angrily.
Well,
If I was angry, you'd know. I'm not angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
I don't like you when you're happy.
I know, you don't. And that's a lot of the time.
Okay. Hey, everybody. We also give a special thank you to... You're too happy, Ben. I don't like this. This is too much. We also give a special shout out to the Murloc Club. The Murloc Club is Aaron, Brandon O, Haster, Jesse O, Caleb M, Kilroy Tastic, and Taryn. Thank you very much for being part of the Murloc Club. Thank you to all our patrons. Oh, wait. Special Murloc Club shout out.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. Well, at first I was like, wait, do we do the Murloc sound for everybody, or is it just for the Murloc Club? And then I was like, it's for the Murloc Club. That's
because they're the Murloc Club.
Right.
It's a club of Murlocs.
Right. If you're gonna talk to the Murloc Club, you speak in Murloc. I put the two together, and I was like, wait a sec. I got it. I figured it out.
Good job there. Good job.
I put 2 and 2 together. Anyway, we thank you for trying to solve the problem by throwing money on it, on it. I don't.
We're sorry it hasn't fixed it yet.
I apologize. I accidentally just revealed what I do with my Patreon money. I put it on me. Patreon.com/AzerothRT. Thank you so
I'm
much.
just picturing that scene from Indecent Proposal. You're just like rolling around on the bed naked with like Patreon money.
We don't have that many patrons. It's gonna take a while. We're working up towards it, Ben.
Yeah, pretty much. But anyways, thank you very much for joining us again for this extra long episode. Manny, you were fantastic as always. Chat room, thank you very much for joining us on this special episode. And John,
yeah,
it's been good having you on the show this week.
Hey,
I'm glad that you're always here.
Ben, if I could do this show with anyone, it would be me.
I know.
But if I got a second choice, it would be you.
No.
I'm surprised it wasn't a clone of you, but
well, I didn't know that was an option. Hold on. Back it up. You mean I can have someone who will just agree with me all the time? This will be great.
no, it wouldn't be.
But wouldn't that make you less special?
That's true. I'm going to have to kill him.
And with that, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. And until next time, be good to each other.
I don't know why I was waiting for you to do a Murloc voice again. That's not what we do at the end of the show, but here I am waiting for it. You want to do it again? All right, there we go. I feel good. I feel complete. We completed a show.